Hello and welcome to Falcon Focus for the final time in this unique 2020-21 school year. My name is Matt Menzel. I'm happy to be joined on our final edition by the Director of Athletics, Dr. Rob Barnhill. And I guess first, let's thank you for being here and spending time with us as we wrap up, as we mentioned, what has been just a crazy school year to say the very least. And let's start there by, how would you go about as the AD summarizing the way this school year played out?
By and large, has been a success for us. All right. We started out this summer saying that if we could provide, our goal was to provide our student athletes with the opportunity to have the best possible athletic experience they could. And that meant we wanted to practice and we wanted to play. And to date, we've gotten everything off the ground. Now, we've had some bumps in the road, uh, less than others around us probably, but certainly some bumps. We've had our share of positive tests, but for the amount of tests that we've been doing and for the amount of hoops that we've had to jump through, I think we've delivered upon the promise that we set out to try to deliver. And so I would view it as very successful. Now, if you're asking me about wins and losses, we talked about in the beginning in this year, which is completely outside of my character, right? I'm not concerned about game wins and losses. That was our mindset going in. If we can play, if we can keep people safe and healthy, and we can play and compete and practice and get better, that was the goal. If you win some games, that's gravy, right? That was cherry on the top. Now, once they started keeping score and talking about trophies and tournaments, well, that kind of changed a little bit. Our expectations were like, oh, wait a minute, we can win. We won. All right. Oh, you lost. Oh, come on. So, but for us, it's been successful. Um, it's still, in some ways, surreal, what we've gone through. I mean, we're sitting here with masks on.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, the world has started to turn back towards what we used to know as normal, we've still got sports that we have to finish. We're not across the finish line yet, so we still got to keep going. So, but to date, I think it's been pretty successful.
And in one team, I want to point out football. Okay, when the NAC started here in the spring, the goal is to play 5 games, and the Falcons and Eureka, the only two teams in the entire conference that can make that claim, they got through a 5 game schedule. So again, bravo to those guys and the work ethic they put in during this unique time. But when you look at, okay, forget wins and losses, but just overall, when you look at this school year, what are you most proud of? Maybe what was the most challenging part of this school year?
The most challenging thing is managing the unknown, because so early on, everything was changing minute by minute by minute by minute. You'd have a meeting and spend all this time, and then an hour later, something would happen. You'd have to
Mm-hmm.
change it. So managing the unknown was a big challenge. Um, how we were going to jump through the testing hoops was a big challenge. And if you ask me what I'm most proud of, I will tell you it's the people that work for me or work here. Okay. Our athletic training staff have been absolute rock stars. Without them, we couldn't have gotten any of this done. The fine people across campus that work in the health center, our faculty over in pharmacy that undertook this internal testing challenge, and created a testing procedure to allow us to get to where we've gotten to. Without those folks, we wouldn't have gotten this done. And we're in a unique situation, so that when I'm on a phone call with our conference, and there's 12 other institutions on the phone call, when people are talking about what they can and can't do, we're not a part of that, because we can do. We've been able to do so. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, is the people, the fact that the pharmacy faculty, the health center, our athletic training staff all worked together. There was good synergy there to make sure that we got what we needed to get done to satisfy NCAA requirements, or our different conference requirements satisfied. And then our coaching staffs. Again, to the people, our coaching staff did a tremendous job of keeping the kids engaged through the spring, through the summer, getting them prepared to get here, and they're managing everything that you would normally manage in a competition year, in a season, but you condensed it and added COVID and added the unknowns of, are we gonna be able to play? Are we not gonna play? And it's not, spring around here, you're always moving games because of rain or whatever. Well, this year, everybody, from the winter, from January to now, everybody's been on this watch list of, are we going to play, are we not, based on the testing cadence and the results. So our people have managed this very well. Now, I think it's come at a cost. I mean, I'm sure from a mental health standpoint, it's been a challenge. But I told them, we had a meeting this morning, I was just so complimentary of them. I applaud them all for their commitment and dedication, not only to their teams, but to our department and our school at large.
Everybody's been affected in some way, shape, or form. How about for you as an athletic director? How do you feel like maybe you've grown? Maybe how have you changed the way you've gone about doing your job here after a year like this?
In a lot of ways, there's been some positive outcomes to it. One thing is, the technology, the Zoom meeting thing. I'm at first I'm like, I don't know if I like this, but as I've come to realize, it frees us up to do other things and still be able to have these meetings. So some of the technological opportunities that have presented itself, I think I've learned a little more patience, right? Maybe this has provided some of us with perspective. When you're so focused on winning and losing, this kind of added an element of, maybe that's not the most important thing at all times. And so that a little patience, a little perspective have come out of it. Now, you and I both know as soon as we're back to what we thought was normal and the bullets start flying, we're going to want to win, right? But for right now, I can tell you that's been a thing. The other positive outcome, I think, is the galvanizing of our staff and of our teams. It takes a lot for a team to say, I'm not going to go out and put myself in this position where I could potentially risk our season, right? So it really did, even though this year we curtailed and cut out most of the team bonding things that we normally would have done, right? The galvanizing effect of them coming together and saying, we're not going to go here, we're not going to go there, we're not going to go here, I think that's been a positive outcome.
Testing your memory a little bit and kind of piggybacking off that last question. You've been the athletic director since the spring of 2001. I guess when you look at your role, your responsibilities, how has that maybe evolved in the last almost 20 years?
Well, we've doubled the number of sports and doubled the number of student athletes, so I think the scope of it's changed for sure. Fiscal responsibilities changed a little bit. There's an expectation from a fundraising standpoint that may not have been there when I first took over, that we've been able to develop that aspect of it. I think our support staffs have grown, so certainly sports information. Rock stars, the athletic training staff, rock stars, our strength and conditioning people are outstanding. The work that Janelle and Jeremy do with academics and with student-athlete wellness and mental health, outstanding. So we've been able to, as my role pretty much has been the same, but just the management of the scope has been different. The money's gotten bigger, the number of people's gotten bigger, the staff's gotten larger. I think the expectations have grown a little bit. From that standpoint, the job is always the job, right? It's going to always be the same. It's just the scope and size of it's changed a little bit. What we've been able to do is add value in some of the areas that back in 2001 we didn't have either we didn't have the resources or we didn't allocate the resources to be able to try to address in the way that we do now, the meaningful ways that we do now in totality, like in the areas of healthcare, strength and conditioning, academics, mental health and wellness. We were able to develop all those things. So from that standpoint, it's got just a little bigger.
You came with a coaching background, certainly football, a little bit of basketball, some VHS tapes.
Yeah.
When did you aspire? When did you know, hey, you know what? I might like to go the AD route if that opportunity presents itself.
If I'm being honest, the day that Dr. Luptek offered me the job. I was a football coach, man. I guess I still am. At least I consider myself on Saturdays to be one. I don't find very many people listening. My Little League, I used to coach our Little League team, our little travel team up in Port Washington, and I have since walked away from it, but my assistant coaches have taken over, and they run the team. And the other day, they gave me a team hat. So I'm sitting in my car watching games. It's too cold to sit outside. And I'm watching the game, and I'm complaining. And my wife's like, and I didn't put the hat on because it's brand new. I had a different hat on. And she's like, why don't you just watch and be quiet? So I took one hat off and put the other one on. I'm like, no, I'm official, so now I can go back to complaining. So what was the question?
Talking about just getting into the role.
Oh,
of being
yeah.
an athletic director.
I came here to coach. And then when the opportunity had presented itself and they asked me to come do this thing, I had been academically prepared to do it through my master's and through my doctorate and to some degree my undergraduate work, and certainly through the experience of coaching. But it had never really been a career goal. It was something, that it's like anything else you think about, right? It's one of those things that, well, maybe what would that be like? And you don't know what it would be like if you sit in a chair. And when I got in the chair, I realized pretty quickly I'm a pretty smart guy when it comes to knowing what I do know and what I don't know. And I realized I don't know a whole lot. So why don't I spend some time working on that part of it? But it seems like such a natural progression now. Back then, it was, okay, we need somebody to sign these papers and fulfill this role. And as the roles change and as I've grown and, that kind of thing, it's been a fun ride.
So what did you find as being maybe the early challenges in making that transition from, full-time coaching to trying to juggle both?
Well, that's a two-part question, I guess. The juggling of it was fine for a while, okay? But I remember the day. I can vividly remember the day, the moment when I knew it was time that maybe this thing had gotten too big. We were playing a home football game against Maranatha, and during warm-ups, the team manager at the time comes up and hands me the down marker and says, it's broken. I'm like, okay. She goes, it won't work. And she's trying to use the sliders and it won't work. I'm like, okay, do you have a screwdriver? And I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I just saw that there were some screws. So I loosened, I tinker around, I hit it and bang it, kick it and do some screwies. And next thing I know, it works. I'm like, okay, great. So I turn around, now the warm-up's half over, which is fine at that point. It is what it is. And then somebody, it might have been you, it was somebody came running from the press box and said, hey, listen, we got a problem. I'm like, what is it? The PA won't work. The stuff upstairs, we can't get it to work. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So the team goes into the locker room, and I go up into the old duck blind that was a press box, right? I'm on my hands and knees underneath that table, trying to risk not falling 2 floors down because the floor was rotten and hoping the things on top don't fall on top of my head. And I'm plugging in wires. And again, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying and I'm going through the thing. And that works. And meanwhile, I tell the coaches down there, I'm like, listen, if we get the ball, just run this play 3 times. All right. And I'll be down there when I get. So that was when I knew that it got to be a bit more than I could manage. Now, having said that, I did enjoy the idea of, I would get to work in the morning. We'd have football meetings from like 6 to 8. And then from 8 to 11, I would spend doing all my football stuff. And back then I was the only person on staff that was an offensive coach. So I just sit in a room by myself and do it. I was pretty smart and sometimes pretty stupid, but I could do it. And then I would spend from 11 to 2 doing athletic director stuff. And then I'd go out to practice and then you just rinse and repeat. And so I got pretty good at doing those types of things and compartmentalizing my day, but then it got too big. It just grew to be too big. And so then, you transition to not coaching to be the full-time athletic director. And then you start to realize, okay, you start to look at things differently because where before you were trying to advance it, but really what you were trying to do is keep it afloat. Once your sole focus is that, now you're looking at not only keeping it afloat, but advancing it, making it better. And that's from the minutia to big vision. And I think we were able to do that pretty well once we got into it, looking at it full time like that.
So at the beginning, when you're sitting there going, "What did I get myself into?" Do you have mentors or people you could, pick up the phone, call, and just try to, bounce some ideas off of? Who did you turn to in those situations?
There were several people that I had worked with or worked for. Most of those were on the coaching side. A handful were in the athletic arena. Dan Harris, who was the longtime AD at MSOE, who had been the AD here, he was instrumental early on to help me when I would have questions because such a sweet and caring man. You could call him and say, "Hey, Dan, what about this, this, and this?" The fact that Andy Luptek, Dr. Luptek, the guy that gave me the job, had been a football coach here and had been here so long and had been through several athletic directors. He'd been around the block a little bit, and I could rely on him. Mostly what I did was do a lot of listening to the people that were here. I mean, I took the first 30, 60 days, and all I did was listen and watch, right? I mean, a lot of people would jump in and start making changes. Well, that would have been foolhardy because I don't know what I was changing. So I was listening. I did a lot of listening, a lot of watching. And then when problems would arise, I didn't so much look outside. I looked in the mirror. Okay, so what can you do? A, are you screwing this up, right? Is it you that's the problem? If it's not you, what can you do with the people you have around you, with the resources that you have to try to address this problem? And if I needed to, there were enough people around me to pick up the phone. And then the last big thing about this thing, and it's important because Dr. Ferry's fixing to retire, right? And it's bittersweet. So as the sun will set on his career here, it'll rise on whatever he's going to do next. It's also going to set on our time here with him and the support that we've enjoyed from the president's office. We've done so much, all of us together, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without his support. And so it's bittersweet for me to see him go, not only as a friend, but as a colleague, to see him go. But it also opens the door and the sun will rise on a new guy or gal, and we'll see where that takes us. And so we're looking forward to that.
And we'll talk more about President Ferry's impact on athletics as we go along. But something you and I have talked about plenty of times in the past is we've talked about, the facilities or the advancements in the facilities here on campus, certainly the additions of various programs. But how about the athlete itself? How have you seen maybe the type of athlete that Concordia attracts change since day one?
We've gotten better. And we've gotten better 360 degrees, right? Bigger, faster, stronger, smarter. We have less social problems now than maybe we did when I first came. And again, when I say that, what we consider social problems at Concordia is not what other people consider. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's an old saying, 10% of the people are 90% of the problem, right? So which means that 1 in 10 people are going to be problematic. Well, that math tends to be truistic as you look at the world in any different organization. So having said that, if you apply that math to where we are today, then 70 of these kids should be problems. I don't have the privilege of being able to have great relationships with 700 kids. The relationships I end up having are with the kids that are our best players and the kids that get in trouble. And I can tell you, of that latter group, there aren't 70 of them. So what we consider to be problems aren't problems, okay? We've been fortunate that the kids we get here want to be here. They're good kids, so they make good decisions. They do what they need to do in the classroom. They do what they need to do socially and out in the community. I can't tell you the number of times that I get stopped or when people find out what I do, anecdotally, they say, "Oh, I had this kid babysit for me, or this kid did yard work for me, or I know this kid that works for someone." They're great kids, and that's when we talk about our assets on this campus. One of our greatest assets and resources are the people, and that's the staff and the student body. We get good kids, and then lastly, the kids that we have that come here are committed to being here and committed to buying into our winning culture. Mm-hmm. Right? We do have a winning culture. There's an expectation here that we win, all right? And so the kids that we've been able to recruit to that, and I think that's evident as you go back and look at the teams and their performance from, back when we started to where we are now. There's more consistent winning, and there's more consistent pursuit of championships, and I think that has a lot to do with the kids we get.
Well, you bring that up, and let me ask you this, okay? When you look at the coaching staff, okay, a number of the coaches in the last 5+ years have become full-time staff members. How important is that for the continued success that these programs have experienced?
It's critical. It's critical. I was talking with our vice president the other day, and I said, listen, I know this is a rough time, COVID and everything, and we were fortunate in the fact that we didn't have to lay anybody off. But we tightened up the budget strings. So, but I still have a list of personnel requirements that I want to see addressed. We have some GAs we need to add. We have some full-time assistants that we need to add to supplement these full-time head coaches. That's been the biggest transition for us. I think the biggest value add was moving from part-time people to full-time coaches and from there full-time assistants. And when I first started, there were 4 full-time people in athletics. That's it, total. Every other coach, the football coach was full-time. The assistant was full-time. We had 2 full-time athletic trainers. All other 14 coaches might have been full-time on campus. Some of them were. But they had secondary jobs. And so really the secondary job was the sports, and the full-time job was either faculty or admissions or whatever. Once we made the transition from there, the expectations were allowed to be risen, and the focus on recruiting was allowed to be tightened and honed. And so it's just been this self-fulfilling thing. We hired these people, and they specialize in doing this, and all of a sudden we start reaping the rewards and benefits of it, and that continues today. And now what we've had to do is we've developed it, and we've grown our rosters. Now we have to add support pieces like graduate assistants or full-time assistants, because that's the natural evolution of this thing. So it's absolutely been critical.
So with that being said, and knowing too that there is an expectation to have success, and you look, and we've talked about it, okay, you look across the board, and there's been that, success for a number of different programs, a consistent and sustained amount of success for a number of programs. Is the expectation, though, higher now with bigger rosters and with full-time staff members? Does it become greater because of having those numbers?
To be honest, I don't know that we can raise the bar of expectations much higher than they are now. I had Jason Kluger called me the other day, and he was going into an interview to be a high school athletic director, and he said, listen, what questions should I ask? And I said, one of the questions you absolutely have to get an answer to is, what is the institution's definition of athletic success? For me, that's always been defined out of the president's office. He says, I want to be in the top 3 in every sport, in every league, every year. Great. That's our mark. There's the bar. Go get it. I think we have a winning culture, and we have winning expectations. And today, that's where we are. Now, we are about a $50 million facility away, some other facility enhancements away, maybe some personnel enhancements away from trying to develop a championship culture, right, whereby we've allocated these resources that take us to the top echelon in all of the categories that you would look at, from facilities to resources to finances to those kind of things. Right now, we have a very strong winning culture. And if this is going to be what the world we live in without that additional $50 facility enhancement or $50 million facility enhancement stuff or infrastructural resource allocation, then I think what we have is what we have realistically set as an attainable goal. Now, having said that, we expect to win, and we expect to go to conference championships and win, and we expect to go to national tournaments. I don't know that we're structured and built right now to be a consistent national champion pursuer. I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel really comfortable saying that we are winning. We have a winning culture that is supported by the institution in every way, that provides us with opportunities to consistently chase conference championships.
I was going to say, I think it's fair to say, compared to when you and I, if we would have sat here, say, 15 years ago, I think that gap's, a little bit closer as far as the Falcons starting to get to that point now. Not only do you get to the national tournament, but you make noise, and again, making the steps toward that national championship. Like you said, you're not there yet, but certainly that gap has closed quite a bit
without
from 15
question.
years ago.
Right. So when I started, we had a competing culture. Field a team and compete. There were no great expectations of other stuff. Right. It was field a team, do the best you can, provide a great experience, and try to win. Okay. We've gone from that to demanding that we win, and the next evolution, and hopefully it's in our lifetimes that we see it, right? I mean, the next evolution, if there's any donors out there that are listening, when we get to where we need to get to from a facility standpoint, where we're among the elite and have those things to offer with the excellent academics and the Christ-centered culture that this place provides, if we have that, then we can look at reframing the bar, and that's the next step, right?
And one sport that had a great deal of success this past school year is a sport you love, hockey. You look at men's and women's hockey, they both were tough outs in their respective conference tournaments, again, making great strides from years past. And then ACHA hockey, the Division II team, got to the national tournament in North Dakota. I guess when I bring up hockey, I've always been, wondering, because if memory serves me correctly, you're not from a hotbed when it comes to hockey the way you grew up.
No.
So where did your love for the sport develop? How did you become such a passionate fan of the sport?
I tell people all the time, the reason why we have Concordia Hockey is because my oldest son, Ty, got into hockey. I knew hockey from watching the Olympic team beat Russia, right? That's what I knew. And back then, my dad built me a plywood hockey stick, and I had this little blue plastic ball that I would skate around in the subdivision with, and that was what I knew of hockey on my little roller skates. There was no ice, and you had to drive to Raleigh to find an ice skating rink, which is 2 hours away from where I grew up. But when my oldest kid got into hockey, and he needed he needed an outlet, and hockey's one of those things you can start when you're 3, and so I got into it that way. He started it, and I was the guy that I got a pair of skates and a stick and a helmet, so when I fell, I wouldn't hurt myself. And I tapped guys on the butt and said, "Good job." I didn't know what I was doing, but I volunteered. I had to be there anyway, so I just skated around. But I've grown from that to now I play in 3 leagues year round, and I'm not a great hockey player. I put up good numbers, but I don't skate very well. If I could skate, I'd be a tremendous player. But that's where it came from. It's through my kids, right? Both of my kids are hockey players. My kid's playing college hockey. My little one's going to start high school hockey next year. And I felt like, truthfully, with the rink partnership and the rink resource right down the street, that hockey could be a positive addition to our roster. And I felt like the kids here would enjoy watching ice hockey, and they have. We have a great student fan base that comes to the hockey games, men, women, and club, right? And as we've gotten better in hockey, I mean, it's the toughest conference in the country for our NCAA teams, without question, right? Especially on the men's side. The women's side is extremely tough too, but the men's side is really, really deep. And I was really happy with our club team. I'm so happy that those kids have an opportunity to play, and they did so well. And I'm happy for their success.
And no question that you want to see every sport succeed.
Sure.
But how rewarding is it for you when you start seeing some of the sports that you helped, bring to Concordia, to watch them grow, to have the success? Maybe it's taken 5-10 years, but they've made those strides.
I mean, certainly it feels good, but at the moment that they gave me the job, they also dropped 15 babies on my porch. So they were mine anyway, right? So they've all been mine. So even though I may not have started softball, like they're having a tremendous season, right? I'm so happy for those kids, and I'm happy for the coaching staff, and I'm happy for Steve. What do you have, his 400th win?
Well, yeah, he's been,
Is that right? I read that the other day. I don't want to misquote a number, but I thought it was
we'll double check that.
Yeah, but it was a big number.
It's a big number.
It was a huge number.
Long time.
So it might. I can't remember what number it was. I read it. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's a ginormous number. And I think 400 is underselling it. But anyway, I'm happy for them. I didn't start softball, but I'm happy for their success. I mean, It might be a little different because you started it, but the reality is they're all Falcons, they're all ours, and we root for them the same.
Well, did you ever get, pushback from maybe powers that be, or even, maybe outsiders going, what are you doing adding this sport? What are you doing adding that sport? Or have you always gotten that support that, you know what, if you think this can happen and we can have success, go do it?
So early on, I love to tell this story. It took me 6 months to get ice hockey approved. We had a subcommittee of people. The senior administration told me to go form a subcommittee to research this thing, right? It took me 6 months to get hockey started, which is the first thing that I started. It took me 6 minutes to get men's and women's lacrosse started. Once I think we showed them return on investment, there was always some questions. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? But at every turn, it brought more students. It brought more success. It brought more diversity. And so I think they've seen the ROI on growth in athletics, and they've been supportive of it.
You mentioned, I know we got to start wrapping things up, but you mentioned, okay, President Ferry retiring at the end of the school year, calling it a career, at least at Concordia. And you touched on it a little bit, but what has he meant to you? What has he meant to athletics and just his relationship with athletics?
I'll do the easy one first. He's been a partner and just a avid supporter. We've had a couple of run-ins. When I say a couple, I mean a couple, 2, 3 over the 20 years or whatever. But he's been so supportive of not just me, but of athletics. And the man truly cares. I used to tell people in recruiting all the time. There was at one point the football highlight video that we used for recruiting. We scored a touchdown against Greenville in overtime to win the conference championship, and there's all these old men in the corner jumping up and down, and he's one of them. The president of the university is in the end zone jumping up and down with the kids. I think that personifies what he's meant to us athletically. To me, he's just been a great partner, great mentor. I'm going to miss him a lot. There's my dad, and then there's some coaches, and then there's this guy. So it's tough to see him go.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit, because I don't know if maybe fans realize, and not every university is the same, not every college is the same, but what is that working relationship like between a athletic director and president? How's that go about?
Well, I don't know how it is on every campus. I mean, it's pretty tough here because normally when we go and speak at things, he speaks first and I speak second. And if you've ever heard the man talk, he's very eloquent. So I have to always follow this kind of thing, right? I can sum up our relationship really with this anecdote. Not very many athletic directors can text their college president and ask, "Hey, what are you wearing to this thing?" Right? Yeah. So that I have the same thing he's got, kind of thing. It's been awesome. It really has. You can, although that we have channels, right? I go through my vice president to him. He's always been accessible to me. He's always been willing to listen. There have been times he said no, right? There have been, but by and large, he's been so supportive, and he's been a friend. That's important.
I know you can't predict the future. I wish you could. I wish we all could. As we go into the summer months, I guess when you think about what 2021-22, the school year, might look like, are you confident as we sit here that it may be more normal than maybe this past school year? Are we closer to, scheduling wise, as far as conference play goes, getting sports back in the fall, winter, spring months like they're accustomed to? Are we closer to normality?
I think so. I think you're seeing an upward trend socially that way. I think you're seeing municipalities, whether it be local, state, national, there's opening up in a return to some of that. To what extent, I don't know. Like you said, I can't predict the future. Sure. I would love to see, you look at sports commercials where 3 years ago there's 100,000 fans and they're all, belly button to elbow, and I don't know that we're going to get back to that, but I'm looking forward to it, and for our at our level, we'll follow what everybody else does, and the trickle down will find us. But I hope that it's going to be better than it was this year for sure. To what degree, I don't know. We haven't really gotten any direction from the NCAA, so then you don't have any from the conferences. And institutionally, I know what we're trying to do as we try to open up our campus through the summer and into the fall. But so you got this top-down and bottom-up kind of thing where we're right in the middle, so I guess we'll just wait and see. But I think it's going to be better.
Let's wrap it up. Summertime upon us, the school year wrapping up. What's on the agenda?
I got to get my boat out and cleaned up. I got to chase some salmon and some trout out on Lake Michigan. I got a new putter for Christmas. Ooh. So now I'm carrying two, one to throw and one to use. I'm looking forward to playing some golf. My kid's playing baseball. My oldest son will be home from college, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, he's been away for 6 months, and now he thinks he's all grown up, and he's going to have to come back and live under our rules. So hopefully the summer won't require me to kick him out of the house like my daddy had to do to me. Yeah, those are the things I'm looking forward to.
Some well-deserved.
And some warm weather, too.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice.
Again, some well-deserved downtime. Again, getting through this 2020-21 school year. Dr. Rob Barnhill, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you
always.
too, Talent. Appreciate it, brother.
Enjoy the summer, and we thank you for joining us all school year long. Thanks to Sam Dunn behind the scenes, Jeremy Crawford. And again, thank you for watching. I'm Matt Menzel. This has been Falcon Focus for this 2020-21 school year.